Hi everybody, my name's Melanie. I'm a knitwear designer based in the Mid-Atlantic United States, and this is my vlog, my knitting podcast that I very rarely film. So the kids were going to be out of the house today, and I thought, hey, it's a great opportunity to actually update you. I'm hoping that this will be a bit of a more chatty episode than I have had in the past, possibly because I don't have as many finished objects. I've been in a bit of a knitting slump lately. I don't know if you've ever found yourself there, but I have. So I guess to start off, we moved into this house officially in January in the middle of the Forest of Arda test, and it still needed a lot of work. So what you see behind me, like the purple and the couch, and my office wasn't anywhere near finished, so I didn't have anywhere to film a podcast. And between all of the house repairs, which some of them weren't repairs, they were just things I wanted to do, in between that and trying to work on the Forest of Arda test and homeschool my children, I got kind of burnt out. So then roll around to the summertime and I didn't want to knit. So there's a couple other factors that I'll talk about that kind of led to my knitting slump. When you have to frog multiple sweaters, that will do it. But it was my own fault. So I'll start with the number one reason for my knitting slump, and it is this. I always fold the sleeve in so it doesn't get as much friction when I'm working on the second sleeve. So I'm almost done. I just have this much left. Well, almost done, and then I can block and steek it. But this is the Fosteriana cardigan. The cowl released in March, and I would show it to you, except I do not have it. I sent it to my mother for Mother's Day. So I don't have a copy of the cowl, but let me see if I can do like an up close. It's named after the Fosteriana tulip. Let me preface this by saying that I love the pattern. I love the yarn. Well, of course I love the pattern. I designed it. But I love the yarn. I love the design. I'm really excited to wear it. But the thing is, it is 4-ply. Very skinny 4-ply yarn. So the body wasn't too bad to work on because it had this part that was knit flat that would kind of keep you motivated. And then the cable color work part is really addicting. The sleeves are where I suffered because it's just miles of stockinette and I used 12-inch circular needles and it's just miserable over and over. So I finished the first one, got to the color work, did that. The second one is taking forever and I haven't wanted to knit it because it's so slow going and I can't feel the yarn as well as I can with like a DK or sport weight, at least. Those I can knit without looking a lot, but this one I've had to look more closely to make sure I'm actually knitting each stitch correctly because I can't feel the yarn as well. Maybe I've just got some lost feeling in my fingers, but so it's been more challenging for me. I still have to knit the children's cardigan version of this, so I'm kind of dreading that because that means that I will have the lovely pleasure of knitting with it again. The yarn itself, it actually comes in worsted weight also. The yarn itself is John Arbin Knit by Numbers, and it's wonderful. A million colors. I think I just like it better for accessories. Again, it's really hard for me to feel the yarn, so it's not really shade to the yarn, it's more shade to the yarn weight. I think my next project will be at least DK, just so I can recover from that. So that's my main project right now. I do have a second project on my needles, which is the women's Vine Pullover. Now, you've been hearing about the Vine Pullover for all eternity. There was the kids one, and then I started on the men's one, and then I started on the women's one, and I still don't have a pattern finished to send to my tech editor. And it's my own fault. I I learn best by doing. Just because I read something doesn't mean that I really, that it clicks. Or maybe some of the resources were possibly not the best, but I really started to hit on the proper way to grade a raglan sweater for adults when I read Knitting from the Top was a great resource, and also just realizing that it needed more depth. So that was the first problem. So this is the big men's cardigan, which if you follow me on Instagram, there was this whole debacle where I re-knit the yoke, and it's passable, but I realized even after re-knitting it that most sizes are going to require a compound raglan. So I put the men's cardigan massively on the back burner, because this may not even be the final sample, and also it's got a giant line from dye lot problems. So welcome to the Vine Pullover epic drama, which is the other reason for my knitting slump, because I'd already knit this whole sweater, ripped out the yoke, knit another yoke, grafted it to this, and then sat down to grade the pattern thinking, oh, I've made it, and realized that most of the upper sizes required compound raglan, which I had been trying to avoid. So I'm like, fine, I'll skip that. I'll go to the women's project. Surely I can grade one that fits myself really well. You would think that. Again, utter failure. It did not really help me feel confident as a designer. To struggle so much with what seemed to be a basic pattern. So this is the remnants of the original women's Vine Pullover. Had it graded out, the numbers looked great. The neck depth was even okay as far as like the way it fit. The problem I came into was something that I couldn't really tell until after the sleeves had been knit. And silly me, I knit the entire body and then went back and knit the sleeves. And I noticed I was like, oh, it'll block out, it's fine. It was all bunchy. I'll try to post, if I can find it, a picture right here of kind of what was going on with it. Just drove me batty. I even knit another one trying to figure it out. And I came to the conclusion that, number one, I don't really love the way raglans fit in my body. And number two, they needed to be compound, or as compound as I could get them, which is in Maggie Righetti's book, Sweater Design in Plain Language, she talks about that. And did I listen? No, I did not listen. I had to knit like 3 sweaters and find this out for myself. So just take it from me, maybe the first time you read something, try it that way. Don't think you know better, because you probably don't. I didn't anyway. So I did it her way, graded it all out by hand using graph paper, and came up with this 0 ease version. It fits perfectly. Never mind that I had already knit most of the body and then a sleeve before I realized that I was going to have to rip one out and then knit this compound version. But now we have a cropped compound version that is good. This is Malabrigo Rio Solitos in, it's Rio della Plata, maybe? I don't remember, but it's just a really lovely blue. And I am looking forward to wearing this, by the way. I would just like to actually be finished with the design. So my other, currently on the needles, is a Positive Ease compound Vine Pullover. This one is knit in Knitting for Olive, Heavy Merino and Marzipan. And I had an entire one that was completely finished that I had to rip out and soak all of the yarn and rewind it all. So I have like this giant box, except for this one skein right here, of So if it doesn't work this time and we don't get gauged, I'm going to scream. That's another problem that I've had with this pattern. Other patterns, I design the sample for me to the gauge, the number of stitches per inch and the number of rows per inch. that the swatch tells me. And then after I knit my sample, I check it and I make sure that it matches. And if it doesn't, I adjust it before I grade it for all of the rest of everyone. The problem is I'm trying to, with the men and women's pullovers, stick with the same gauge that the children's sweater has, which is 20 stitches and 28 rows or rounds in 4 inches. And it's really been a struggle. The first sweater wound up getting like 21 stitches per inch and then like 30 rounds per, or not inch, per 4 inches. And 30 rounds, which was way off. So I'm knitting this sample with like size 7 needles, hoping that it's gonna work out. But if it doesn't, I may just have to either include something like an alteration guide of here's what to do if your row gauge is off, or I'm just gonna have to not recommend the yarn, because Malabrigo Rios, I can hit it perfectly. The problem is if you are knitting a sweater with a lot of positive ease, you're not going to want to use this yarn. Also, some people just don't like superwash yarns. They have their place, but they can be very pilly, and anytime I've washed Malabrigo Rios in a machine, even hand wash in a machine, even though it's superwash, I have had holes in it. Whether it is got a lace detail or whether it's the kids version, I have gotten holes that I've had to repair from washing it in the washing machine. That is the only yarn I've ever had that happen with. So it doesn't feel very sturdy. All that to say, you may want to substitute a different yarn where this doesn't feel like it wears very well sometimes. Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino feels really sturdy, barely pills. So I was trying desperately to make it work. And we'll see if it actually works. Another option that I could do is just grade it for this gauge, but then it won't match the other ones. So this is my brain. It all has to match perfectly. And when it doesn't, I get really frustrated. So that's reason number 2 for my knitting slump, is that I just have been really frustrated about the things that I'm trying to design, because I thought I would already have the men's pattern out and that the women's pattern would be ready to go this fall. And at this point, I'm just like, I don't know. I had other things that I also wanted to design and work on, like a little kid's sweater for Reindeer Parade, maybe next year. I've had to kind of come to the conclusion that some knitwear designers can have one design a month that they release, and that's wonderful, and they're really great at it, but I can't do that. And I thought, oh, well, I could just do 6, and no, maybe 3 or 4, because I've got other responsibilities, homeschooling kids and taking care of the house. I'm not a very good multitasker, so if I am not focused on those things, I'm focused on knitting, and I can't just ignore my kids so I can churn out patterns. It doesn't suit my personality, and I get really burnt out. So I think, it's fine. If I just design 3 or 4 a year and I do it well, then that's fine. And I think that it's been important for me to reach a point of contentment with that. And not try to not copy, but not try to be other designers that I see and like. I'm me, and I'm trying to just knit what I love and design what I love, and not push myself to do things that aren't life-giving for me. And that's been a real lesson of this season. But yeah. Let's see what else. I do have one other thing to show off, which is my daughter's Forests of Arda cardigan. I did hers a little bit differently, and I've decided that she probably needs a zipper here just because she's so rough on this little button closure here. So at some point I'm going to go get a zipper and put it in. But I'm hoping to have the testing call by the end of the month for this one. I'm a little bit behind just because I haven't gotten my other things. I've been focused on Fosteriana so long. But this one is coming. It's going to be sizes 2 years to 16 years. I wish that I could do infant sizing because I think it would make the cutest little gift, little baby jacket. But there's two reasons. Number one is the folded collar isn't really going to work if they're much younger than 2. And this motif, I mean, you can shorten it a little bit, but it's very long. And so if you're getting into like an infant size, you're not going to have enough room. I may go back at some point and use like Ulyss, which is the sport weight version of Gilliatt from Gererum Natura. I may go back and use that one to make an infant size, but I may also wait. I have some thoughts going forward. I really enjoy making cable color work. This one's fingering weight. Forest of Arda was worsted, almost Iran weight. And then Reindeer Parade was kind of in between. And I'd like to do one more in between one, and then maybe release a mega pattern without the color work, just kind of a blank slate sweater that you could use with other motifs, or that maybe I make or someone else makes. So that's kind of the plan long term, is not to keep churning out sweaters like this and be like, oh, buy this whole sweater pattern with, you know, whatever motif I put, but more that I would just continue to make motifs and you could use the blank pattern to knit the sweater with them. I think that would also be easy for me as a mom. We've talked about I can only do like 3 patterns when they're whole sweaters like that. But if I could just create the motif, of course, then I'd still probably need to knit up a sample. I don't know. What do you think? Do I need to knit up a whole sample of the same sweater every time I make a new motif? Like either commission it or knit it myself? Or is it okay just to knit the motif, maybe make a cowl or such, and then sell the motif basically? And then let people use it with a sweater. I don't know. I suppose if it's not a sweater pattern, then it doesn't matter because they're just fine. But anyway, these are the things I tend to think and plan very long term, and I get inside my head, and then I've overdone it with my planning and my thinking, and oftentimes have to dial it back, which is very humbling. The whole Vine Pullover debacle of 2025 has been very humbling as a designer, because if you asked me how to design a sweater with set-in sleeves, I could give you a week-long course about best practices and how to do it, and actually that could be really fun to teach. But if you ask me how to design a raglan sweater that fits my own body, it did not go as smoothly. So yeah, kind of smarting over that still, because it just was really defeating to have to rip out so many times and waste so much time when, I mean, I've got a 3 Musketeers cable color work design that I've been itching to order the yarn for and cast on, and I just can't do it because I'm not finished with my other obligations. I call them obligations because I have publicly said to people, yes, I'm going to be releasing this pattern. So I feel like even if it's driving me crazy, I have to get it right and have to do it. Which maybe that's the reason I felt so burnt out this summer. The only other thing I have to show you is an acquisition. If I made the podcast regularly, then I would have been able to show you this yarn before it ever was a sweater. But obviously I'm not so great at doing that. So I bought this yarn on my birthday from the Yarn Basket in Philippi, West Virginia, which was so fun to finally get to go there. They recently changed ownership. We were really worried they were going to close, but they haven't. So that means I can go back. But on that trip, I ordered this yarn, and then I ordered this yarn to try. It's not ordered, I bought it. Kelborn Woolens Mojave. And I told myself, Melanie, you do not need this yarn because my other Vine Pullover is marzipan and this is really close. But I just had to do it. And the plan is, if I can get gauge, and we've talked about the whole gauge wonderfulness involving the Vine Pullover, if I can get 20 stitches and 28 rows in 4 inches, I'm going to knit a short sleeve version, like positive ease short sleeve t-shirt version of the Vine pullover. No promises though, and it will probably be, it'll be more just a sample of, hey, look, this is what you can do with it, not a separate new pattern. I really wanted a lightweight summery knit, and I think this might fit the bill. This one did not fit the bill. I'm really proud of this pattern. It started out as a kid's pattern. If you're new here, this is the Belphalis tank. It's named for a region in southern Gondor in Lord of the Rings, of course. And I'm really proud of it. I wanted to create something that had braided straps. And the kids pattern is very popular on Etsy. I'm not sure why it took off, but maybe it's some imposter syndrome there, but I'm very proud of it. I'm also proud of the adult sweater. I think it looks great. I guess I could stand up here. It's got this detail at the bottom. The problem is, it's knit in Wool and the Gang Shiny Happy Cotton, which is an Iran weight cotton, and it's, I want to say 16 stitches in 4 inches. But all that to say is it's too heavy. Like, even wearing this upstairs in my air-conditioned home, it feels too hot for me. Aside from that fact, I also don't really like to wear tank tops. So it's not one I grab. So I wanted something that is more me, which a t-shirt would be more me, that also isn't so heavy. It is nice. This one does cover bra straps. I think it would be a great layering piece. Like if you knit it in wool and wore it under a long sleeve shirt in the winter, I think that would suit me at least better. But for summertime, maybe if you wanted to wear something sleeveless in the spring, but I find the yarn weight to be quite warm. But if I redid the pattern in like sport weight, it would make this much thinner. So I don't know. Nothing wrong with the pattern. It's just, as a designer, looking back, my daughter was the one wearing the initial one, so I used the same yarn for the adult one, having never tried it on. And I don't know, it doesn't suit me for summertime where we're at anyway. Maybe if you have a milder summer, then it wouldn't be a big deal, because I know the Tolsta tank is really popular, and I think it has a similar gauge. So it could just be me not being able to deal with that. You'll have to chime in and tell me what you think about Iran weight cotton for summer knits. But yeah, I think I may have run out of steam now. But I'm really proud because I'm showing 23 minutes, which might be a record of how long I've been able to talk. I'm hoping to be able to do this a little bit more regularly now that I have like a podcast spot set up. I need to have some more like interesting visual things. I don't know if you can tell, my wall is purple, which was a real risk. I think the title is like Exotic Eggplant by Bear. But it's like, when I was a teenager, I wanted a purple room, but I probably wouldn't have been allowed to go this dark. And this is like the elevated grown-up purple room. But I've got my office all set up. It's not anything fancy. Let me just, boop. Windows. Tripods are so much fun. So yeah, I've just got everything set up. And then I've got my little Bob is in the corner. If you missed that story, the kids call my dress form Bob. So there's Bob. Poor Bob. She's not wearing anything right now. Mostly because I'm terrified of moths. So maybe if I can get over that fear, she might wear some knitting things more often. But anyway, it's been fun to give you guys this July update from my knitting life and my knitting slump. I'm hoping that I can finish this and block this in the next week so I can get it written and off to my tech editor. It's going to have a really long testing period because it's fingering weight yarn. So here's hoping that I can get that out by September so that I can release it in January so that people that actually want a spring sweater have time to knit it by spring. But that's the goal and that's the plan, and hope to see you guys soon. Bye.